After my rebirth, I decided to fake my death before Lucas could stage his. In my previous life, Lucas had died on the eve of our wedding. Believing I'd jinxed him, I spent decades as his widow paying off his debts and raising his siblings. When I lay dying of illness years later, Lucas reappeared with his wife and children. "You kept my family name but raised my siblings," he said. "We're even." Only then did I learn he'd faked his death to elope with his college sweetheart. I died spitting blood from rage. Now reborn 2 days before our wedding, I immediately bought a southbound train ticket for tomorrow morning. Last lifetime, Lucas had disappeared with Alice to live lavishly in the south, leaving me drowning in debt and childcare. This time, I'd vanish first. Returning home, I found laughter echoing through our house. Lucas and Alice stood in our parlor, her twirling in my wedding dress like some scarlet butterfly. They looked every inch the bridal couple, him handsome, her delicate. My entrance shattered their moment. Alice shrank behind Lucas, sniffling. "I just wanted to try the dress, you know my in-laws never let me." Her tears flowed on cue. The recently divorced woman had been playing the victim since returning to town, using Lucas' pity to infiltrate our home. "Take it off," I demanded. Lucas stepped between us. "Emily, let her keep it a few days. You won't need it until," his voice faltered. Knowing our wedding would never happen, I lunged for the dress. Alice's shriek pierced the air as Lucas shoved me. My back hit the table, sending our new china crashing down. The porcelain shards mirrored my shattered illusions. As neighbors clustered at our open door, I pressed scissors to my throat. "You bring another woman into our home wearing my wedding dress?" My voice trembled with manufactured despair. "How can I face anyone after this humiliation?" The scene wasn't suicide, merely groundwork for tomorrow's disappearance. Let the village believe Lucas drove me to death. Last time, he'd faked drowning the day before our vows, leaving me branded a husband-killing curse. For decades I'd borne that stigma while repaying loans he'd signed and raising his thankless siblings. Now 50 and dying, I'd seen Lucas return triumphant with Alice and their children. But this lifetime, the Millers would choke on their own schemes. Let the village's condemnation rain on Lucas when both bride and groom vanished. Let him explain why drowned men walk and debts mysteriously appear. Tomorrow's train would carry me south, the same route they'd taken. I'd watch from the shadows as their carefully laid plans unraveled. The real curse wasn't any imagined jinx, but the weight of unpaid debts and abandoned family. This time, the Millers could drown in it. He stared coldly at my desperate state. "You took my wife's title without permission. But you did raise my younger siblings. We're even now." "Lucas, how could you do this? Emily's mom was so good to you when she was alive. And now you're trying to drive her daughter to death? This divorcee ruins other people's relationships, what a disgrace. Total homewrecker." The neighbor's whispers snapped me out of memories from my past life. Alice frantically pulled off my clothes before covering her face and fleeing. When the crowd dispersed, Lucas glared at me furiously. "Emily, stop making scenes over trivial matters like clothing. Why must you be so dramatic?" I met his gaze calmly. "Do you truly want to marry me? I thought you loved Alice." His eyes flickered as he softened his tone. "Emily, I promised your mother I'd take care of you. Let's end this foolishness. Okay?" Years ago when Lucas lost both parents, relatives deemed him cursed and drove him out with his young siblings. The gaunt teenager had knelt at my doorstep begging for food. My mother took pity and sheltered all three. Through harsh rural winters, she stretched our family's rations to feed 5 mouths. Even on her deathbed, she never demanded Lucas marry me, only hoped someone would help me in hard times. His proposal had seemed sincere, and I'd accepted willingly. Yet this man repaid kindness with betrayal, misreading my silence as compliance. Lucas feigned reluctance. "You embarrassed Alice today. Invite her for dinner later to apologize." I walked away without answering, heading straight to the mayor's office. The mayor had previously mentioned plans to convert our property into a school. In my past life, I'd refused the government's acquisition offer and lost substantial compensation. This time, Paperwork finalized within hours. We'll reclaim the house in a week. The mayor confirmed. Adding with concern. Where will your large household live? Arrangements are made. I replied evenly. The Millers had overstayed their welcome. Forgetting whose roof sheltered them. Returning home, I found Alice laughing with Sophia and Ethan. The children glared at me. Don't bully Alice, they shouted. Alice pretended to scold them. Mockery gleaming beneath her false sympathy. These same siblings had later wailed that I cursed their brother to death, exploiting my guilt to bleed me dry. Now I understood why their relatives expelled them, rotten apples from a poisoned tree. Get out if you dislike my house, I snapped. Having treated them as family for years, my harshness stunned everyone. Lucas froze as young Ethan pouted. Alice gives us malted milk and candy. You just hoard everything. Enough, Lucas barked, glancing nervously at me. Opening the cupboard, I found my wedding candies and malted milk nearly depleted. I'll restock tomorrow, Lucas said hastily. It won't affect our wedding. Fury surged through me. I slapped Alice twice across the face. Stealing my supplies to play saint? It's a misunderstanding, she stammered pitifully, maintaining her fragile act. These slaps merely collected interest for the suffering she'd cause. Though murderous rage flashed in Lucas's eyes, he swallowed it down. The real reckoning would come later. After all, he still hoped I'd treat his siblings well once he left. Not daring to offend me, his words came out strained. I allowed this. Don't blame Alice. She just felt sorry for the kids. When my mother was alive, she treated Ethan and Sophia better than her own daughter. After her death, I never mistreated them either. While other village kids herded cattle, I worked my fingers to the bone sending them to school. Yet Lucas claimed they were poor things. Some hearts remain frozen no matter how you try to warm them. Only after receiving Lucas' pointed look did Ethan and Sophia reluctantly apologize. We shouldn't have said those things about you, Emily. Sorry. I kept my voice icy. When you live under someone else's roof, you should act like it. You, Lucas shot up, eyes blazing. Emily, after all these years together, does our bond mean nothing? Oh, so he remembered our bond now. Alice kept making urgent eye signals until Lucas' anger cooled. He forced an apologetic smile. They're still young, Emily. They'll do better. What did it matter? I'd be gone soon anyway. The familiar voice of Brother Ma, the local loan shark, echoed outside. Memories flooded back, his violent threats when collecting Lucas' gambling debts in my past life. My hands trembled instinctively. While I'd lain awake sick with worry, Lucas and Alice had been feasting in southern cities. Lucas shot me a nervous glance. Rushing outside. Probably factory business. Through the window, I saw him flash hand signals to Brother Ma. The debt this time was larger than before, 10,000 yuan with crushing interest. Enough to bury an average family for decades. Last life. I worked 3 jobs and sold our home to clear his mess. Now I wondered, without me as his cash cow, how would Lucas handle this viper? Alice smirked knowingly. They say Southerners wear leather shoes and wool coats now. Must look fancy. In my previous life, she'd eventually paraded in designer clothes. Without me shouldering their debts, I doubted they'd afford train tickets south this time. I snorted. Can you even afford that when you're mooching off my family for meals? Her eyes glittered with malice. No doubt imagining tomorrow's escape while leaving me drowning in their debts. Ethan and Sophia chatted exclusively with Alice, pretending I didn't exist. I ate heartily, my last hometown meal. Returning flush-faced, Lucas waited until Alice took the kids walking before sighing dramatically. Sophia will marry soon. Help her choose wisely. And make sure Ethan studies hard. Hypocrite. He knew exactly what hell he was leaving me in. I smiled sweetly. Don't worry. Sophia will marry someone as remarkable as you. Ethan will grow equally grateful. He flinched at the poisoned compliment. Planning your funeral or something? I joked as heavy footsteps approached. Alice's ex-husband Lua Run barged in. Leering. Heard you keep inviting my woman over. What's your game? Trying to steal her? I stared at Lucas in disbelief as he avoided my gaze. Turns out he'd been bringing Alice home repeatedly using my name. No wonder in my past life. When Alice's ex-husband Reborn suspected Lucas after Alice's disappearance. He'd already died, so Lou vented all his rage on me instead. That brute broke my shin bone with a club, leaving me crippled until death. Suppressing the hatred in my gut, I feigned innocence. But I barely know her, I said, turning to Lucas. Didn't you say you invited her over out of classmate loyalty? Those late nights you've been having, were you with Alice? Reborn, all brawn and no brains, flushed crimson. He backhanded Lucas hard across the face. Touch my woman again and I'll kill you. He slurred before staggering away. I emerged from the shadows to find Lucas glaring reproachfully. You shouldn't have provoked him like that. You know how unhinged Lou is. Oh. He knew exactly what kind of man Lou was, yet still chose to elope with Alice, leaving me to face the consequences. Well, this time, he'd reap what he sowed. When Alice returned with Ethan and Sophia, they gaped at Lucas's swollen face. Lou did it, I said flatly. Sophia snapped. Why didn't you protect my brother? Emily? I watched Alice dab ointment on Lucas's cheek. Their intimacy unmistakable. Why not blame the troublemaker instead? Alice's eyes welled up instantly. I had to admit, with her delicate features and fragile demeanor, she radiated damsel in distress charm. I'm sorry, she sniffled. I'll leave now. The Miller siblings clung to her while shooting me venomous looks. Lucas frowned. You've changed, Emily. I thought you'd inherited your mother's kindness. Alice needs our help. I laughed coldly. By all means, let Lou beat that saintly compassion out of you daily. Maybe he'd sing a different tune when Lou shattered his kneecaps. The room fell silent. Guilty eyes dropping everywhere. They all knew, once Lucas faked his death, I'd become Lou's punching bag. In my room, I packed my meager belongings for Dawn's departure. Why fake my death instead of simply kicking out the Millers? Because after years living under our roof, the village saw us as family. Thugs like Magoo would still come after me for Lucas's debts. A lone girl needed to disappear cleanly. But more than escape, I wanted Lucas to taste his own medicine, to watch his schemes crumble. Sleep eluded me. Memories surfaced of my deathbed confrontation last life. Why? I'd choked out blood. His icy reply still stung. I wronged you. But marrying you was repaying your family's charity. Alice deserves the good life you stole. Had I known his heart belonged to another, I'd never have wed him. The hypocrisy, relishing my care while pining for Alice. At daybreak, Lucas intercepted me, black-eyed and anxious. Today was his staged death. He wanted last-minute instructions about his siblings. I denied him the chance. Furniture movers arrived promptly. Everything went: Sophia's beloved wardrobe, Ethan's study desk, all my mother's possessions. The siblings glared hatred while Lucas probed nervously. I smiled sweetly. New beginnings need fresh furniture. Sophia's outgrowing her clothes. Ethan needs proper study space. Let them choke on their own lies. Emily Johnson shouted. I want a vanity and a big bed too. Ethan immediately chimed in. Me too. I waved my hand grandly. You'll both get what you want. Though I certainly wasn't paying for any of it. Lucas looked at me with grateful eyes, even moving to embrace me. Emily, you're so kind. I feel at ease knowing you're here. I nearly gagged in disgust, quickly claiming I needed to visit town to check on new furniture before it got too late. Emily. Lucas blocked my path. We're family now. Swear on your mother's grave that you'll always treat my siblings well, no matter what happens, or her soul will never rest. This was exactly how he'd cornered me before faking his death in my past life. Back then, I'd thought he simply worried I'd mistreat them after marriage. That single vow had shackled me for decades. When I remained silent, Lucas adopted a wounded expression. Fine. They're burdens anyway. I shouldn't expect you to care. Then you swear first. I countered. Promise that if you ever wrong me, your parents' souls will know no peace. Lucas froze, unprepared for my defiance. He'd always manipulated me through self-pity before. I knew it didn't matter whether I swore or not, Lucas would still execute his plan. He'd taken massive loans from loan sharks where even immediate repayment required exorbitant interest. His factory wages could never cover it. Especially with Alice's ex-husband circling like a vulture. The gears were already in motion. While Lucas stood dumbfounded, I walked out. Villagers greeted me on the road, asking why the bride-to-be wandered alone. Rubbing my eyes, I whispered brokenly, "Just need some air." "Is this about Alice? Lucas has lost his mind." Someone muttered. Tears spilled as I lamented. "She wears my clothes, steals my food. With my mother gone, no one stands up for me." The crowd erupted in sympathy, cursing the Miller siblings as ungrateful wretches bullying their benefactor's daughter. I trudged toward the riverbank as storm clouds gathered. The deserted shore allowed me to board the waiting boat undetected. Within an hour, I sat veiled on a southbound train, watching blurred landscapes through drowsy eyes. Meanwhile, Lucas finally left home at noon after tearful farewells. "Be respectful to Emily," he told Sophia and Ethan. "I'll write often." His siblings sniffled. "We'll be fine. That woman wants to marry into our family? Let her sacrifice everything for us." Lucas left reassured, confident in my generous nature to support his siblings. He wasn't wrong about my past self. I'd starved to raise these leeches in another life. But when he rode to the river's bend, instead of empty banks, he found villagers swarming the shore. My shoes lay scattered by the water's edge, my hat floating mid-current. Someone shouted, "Your fiancé must have drowned." This mirrored Lucas' own planned disappearance from my previous life, when he'd pretended to drown while fishing for dinner. Now the trap had sprung, but for whom? The storm raged as Lucas stared at the damning evidence. Alice already waited at the station with their train tickets. How could he fake his death under dozens of watching eyes? Yet delaying meant facing loan sharks and a jealous ex-husband's wrath. The river's dark waters seemed to laugh at his dilemma. I believe Lucas lost his life because of our impending marriage, which only deepened my guilt. This great river flows into the Yangtze with such rapid currents that even if someone drowned, finding the body without proper equipment would be nearly impossible. That's why in my previous life, I never suspected Lucas might have faked his death, after all. His siblings Sophia and Ethan were still here. If he'd survived, he surely would have returned. I sought refuge with my cousin who'd made her fortune earlier in Guangzhou's garment industry before becoming the first wealthy household in our village. I decided to mass-produce newly imported jeans through factories. Many doubted this stiff, unflattering fabric. But who could have predicted these pants would later sweep the globe as timeless fashion staples? Lucas turned pale examining my belongings. Some speculated I'd intentionally ended my life due to my evident distress that morning. Villagers pointed fingers at him, condemning his heartless affair with Alice that supposedly drove me to suicide. My death shattered Lucas's plans, leaving him paralyzed with confusion. Soon, Lone Shark Mark arrived with enforcers, my demise being village-wide news. Mark had only lent to Lucas considering my local roots and property. With me gone, he demanded immediate repayment or threatened broken legs. I learned this through my aunt's letter, though I only confided about Lucas's affair with Alice, keeping past life grudges secret. Mark, sensing Lucas's escape attempt, marched him home demanding payment. Lucas, inexperienced with such pressure, panicked. In our past life, I'd endured similar threats for decades while protecting Lucas's frightened siblings. Lucas searched my room for hidden money, but I'd sold every stick of furniture. Sophia and Ethan huddled trembling as Lucas suddenly remembered, my property could still be sold. And with me dead and unattached, it should rightfully go to him as fiancé. The village chief arrived with confiscation papers, rendering the property untouchable even if Lucas dared sell it. Frustrated, Lucas cursed my sudden death and missing funds. Mark snapped. "You borrowed this yesterday, can't have spent it all already." The truth burned. Lucas had immediately wired the money to Alice's cousin in Guangzhou. Promised massive returns upon their arrival as business partners. In our past life. This scheme succeeded. Now, having missed their train and trapped under Mark's watch, Lucas pinned hopes on Alice coming to his rescue. Instead, Alice returned under police escort. Her ex-husband exposed their undivorced status and unrepaid dowry. Chaos erupted as Mark and the ex beat Lucas bloody. Though arrested for illegal lending and assault, Lucas remained saddled with debt and social scorn as an adulterer. Meanwhile, my business thrived. Incorporating future trends, I designed bell-bottoms and high-waisted jeans. Partnering with my cousin, she handled sales while I liaised with factories. We gifted samples to trendy girls, sparking viral demand. 5 days after leaving, my aunt clarified I hadn't drowned but sought work elsewhere. Without legal death status complicating my new life, I stayed clear of Lucas's mess. This lifetime saw Lucas crippled in the beating, abandoned by Alice who fled his disabled state and sibling burdens. Even his relief at finally being with Alice legally evaporated when she mocked. "You convinced me to elope while still married yourself?" Broken and homeless, Lucas finally understood the consequences I'd once shielded him from, but now faced them utterly alone. Even Alice had lost her former gentleness, replying with disgust, "You were the one who said you wanted to make amends. Did I ever beg you? Weren't you planning to elope with me just to chase riches down south?" Sophia and Ethan pleaded with Lucas to care for him for a while, assuming she still loved their brother and would do better than Emily. Alice shook them off. "Who wants to babysit you two deadweights? Think I'm as dumb as Emily? Waiting on you like royalty?" After a fierce argument, Alice left, later rumored to be seeking new suitors. Sophia and Ethan, unaccustomed to hardship, constantly blamed Lucas for driving Emily away and refused to care for their bedridden brother. When they couldn't afford school fees, Sophia resigned herself to cutting pig feed while Ethan took odd jobs, a far cry from their pampered past. Reading Aunt's letter brought grim satisfaction, but I refused to dwell on past grievances. 3 months later, however, I encountered Lucas again during a village trip to finalize property documents. The Miller siblings now occupied a derelict shack arranged by the village chief. Spotting my luggage at the chief's doorstep, Lucas's eyes briefly lit up before he deliberately turned away. "Couldn't hack it in the city?" he sneered. Sophia thrust her hands on hips. "Hand over the demolition compensation to settle my brother's debts, and we might let you back in the family." Ethan waved grimy arms. "Get lost. You're not welcome here." The squalid room reeked of decay, half-eaten steamed buns and pickled vegetables littering a warped table. Worlds apart from my former brick house. Lucas instinctively hid his bandaged leg when our eyes met. "Why would I want your crippled, debt-ridden brother?" I laughed. Lucas flushed crimson. It was Alice's idea to borrow money and run away together," he blurted, mistaking me for the gullible girl who'd once coddled them. "Can't we start over?" But I'd already paid the ultimate price for trusting snakes. As I left, Lucas's resentful glare followed me through the window. True to Aunt's warning, Lucas reappeared months later at the train station, haggard, leaning on a crutch, trailed by grubby Sophia and Ethan. My cousin tried shooing them away, but they stared with practiced pitifulness, mirroring their first arrival at my childhood home. Back then, Mother had bathed and clothed them. Now, watching these leeches who'd weaponized kindness, I simply turned toward our thriving wholesale pants market. Some lessons only fire teaches. The business seemed to be doing well, and the 3 Millers' eyes gleamed with greed and envy. They lingered outside our shop like persistent shadows, refusing to leave. When curious customers asked who they were, Lucas actually blushed and glanced at me. "I'm Emily's family." Sophia and Ethan chimed in. "Emily's our sister-in-law." My cousin tried to shoo them away angrily, but since they weren't causing trouble, even security couldn't intervene. Later at a dim-sum tea house filled with steam, Lucas leaned forward eagerly. "Emily, when your mother took us in back then, she worried you'd be alone and vulnerable after she passed." I poured myself tea calmly. True. She didn't want me to face the world alone. Lucas' eyes lit up, hands trembling with excitement. Exactly. That's why we're here. We can be your family again. If you want to marry me, we can. Ethan interrupted through a mouthful of egg tarts. These are amazing. I'm coming here daily. Sophia was already stuffing free peanuts into her pockets. Noticing my expression, Lucas flushed awkwardly. I smiled faintly. But I already have a family. A bright-eyed girl ran up with flowers. This is from my brother. Behind her, the handsome tea-house owner nodded warmly. Lucas turned pale. Why? My gaze drifted to his prosthetic leg before settling on his crumb-covered siblings. The owner's successful, kind, and his sister's delightful. As I left, the glass reflection showed Lucas' stare hardening into venom. The next day, our shop caught fire. Thankfully, we'd stopped sleeping there. The Millers were arrested at the train station with stolen cash from our register. Lucas got prison time for arson and theft, while his siblings were deported to their hometown. During our final meeting in custody, Lucas begged, "Please watch over Sophia and Ethan. They're just kids." I laughed coldly. "No. I'm heartless." Memories surfaced of my past life's lonely deathbed, grown Ethan and Sophia refusing me even a glass of water. They'd told Lucas later. That woman treated us okay. But we only consider Alice our real sister-in-law. Lucas suddenly gasped, trembling. You remember too. You set me up. The money placement. Provoking me, even leaving before my fake death wasn't about Alice? Tears streamed down his face. I was wrong. Forgive me. I tilted my head innocently. I don't understand. As guards dragged him away, his howls echoed, "Did you ever love me?" The question dissolved into the sterile air. Unanswered. No. He was just afraid I'd keep retaliating against his siblings. When I first came to Guangzhou, I had no intention of dragging out this feud. But they refused to let it go. The tea-house owner and I were purely platonic friends. Yet I deliberately made Lucas uncomfortable that day. He finally realized I'd never look back. So he resorted to desperate measures. Now, nothing could be more permanently convenient than having me locked up here. As for Sophia and Ethan, with a felon for a brother, no property in their village, and their lazy habits, they'll face endless hardships. Later, I heard they tried harassing Alice when times got tough. The moment Alice's in-laws learned about her past, they demanded to cancel the engagement. Sophia and Ethan got an earful from Alice's family. Sometimes it takes a snake to handle vipers. I stepped outside into the sunshine. The memory of that shy, earnest boy from long ago felt like someone else's life story. The first time I saw Lucas, he was splitting a steamed bun between his siblings. When the kids asked if he'd eat too, he smiled gently. "I'm not hungry, you two have it." My mom whispered tearfully, "What a good boy. Emily, do you wish you had a brother like him?" I nodded eagerly. "Should we make him family? Otherwise, when I'm gone, this house will only have you left. It won't feel like a home anymore." Now I'd tell her, home isn't defined by how many people fill it. Wherever my heart finds peace is home, whether that's just me or a whole crowd. My cousin excitedly pulled me aside when I returned. "Your new jeans design sold out again." "Perfect. This life's looking bright. Exactly how I want it."